Hey guys, this is Courtney Mason, and this is the Millennial Dreamers Podcast. Happy New Year! I'm so grateful that you joined us for the very first episode of 2019. If you're new to the podcast, then you should know that Millennial Dreamers is all about celebrating and profiling entrepreneurs, creatives, and thought leaders who are changing the game in a major way. Today's guest is no different. Sevetri Wilson is a history-making go-getter who has made waves in her career from the very start. In this episode, you'll hear all about her journey as well as advice she now shares with fellow entrepreneurs. This one is heavy on the advice, so you might want to get a notepad handy. Let's get into it. Millennial Dreamers, today on the podcast, we have a powerhouse on the rise, Miss Sevetri Wilson. Sevetri is an entrepreneur and leader in communications, public policy, and technology. She started her first company, Solid Ground Innovations, a full-service strategic communications firm, in 2009. And grew it to a multi-million-dollar business by the time she was 22 years old. Solid Ground Innovations assists corporations, government entities, and nonprofit foundations in growing their identities through advertising, branding, and social media. Not only that, in 2016, Sevetri launched a tech startup, ExemptMeNow, which is a web-based subscription platform for tax-exempt entities. She's received a number of accolades for her accomplishments, but most recently has been recognized as the first Black woman tech entrepreneur in New Orleans to raise $2 million in capital for her startup. So in other words, she is a millennial doing it big in a big way. Sevetri, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that warm introduction.
Well, I have to start by saying it's so funny. A few days ago, a friend of mine texted me and she said, I'm at a startup program meeting or at my startup program meeting, and Sevetri is the speaker. So I really hope you have her as a guest on the podcast. And I was like, I'm already ahead of you. She's scheduled to be interviewed on next week. So she was like, yay, I'm so excited. And she wasn't the first person to request that you were a guest on the podcast. So I was like, needless to say, I have to get you on. So thank you for taking time. I know you're super busy. So we just wanted to start by saying that. So for any listeners who might be unfamiliar with your story and your journey, give them a glimpse into your background.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Louisiana. I'm from a smaller city called Hammond, Louisiana. My mother being from New Orleans and my father from Hammond. So I grew up between both cities. Went to LSU undergrad, as you mentioned, started my first company right out of college, and began just growing it and building it from there. At our core, we were a communications and management company, but decided that early on that we had opportunity in the private and public sector. We were also heavily working with nonprofits, both from the grantor and grantee side. So working with grantors like Kellogg and Ford Foundation and providing capacity and support to their grantees on the ground. As we grew as a company, we began to phase out the work that we were doing with nonprofits. And in doing that, I felt that there was an opportunity to essentially productize those services and deliver it on demand through a software subscription platform, in which became ExemptMeNow. And so ExemptMeNow spun out of my first company, Solid Ground Innovations, and I stepped away from my other company full time to run ExemptMeNow full time last year.
Okay, so to take a step back, when you were at LSU, did you start out knowing that you wanted to start a company and become an entrepreneur, or was it something that kind of unfolded naturally as different opportunities came about for you?
You know what's crazy? Although I always say SGI was my first company, ironically, I started an online newspaper called Be Now, Black News Our Way, when I was a sophomore in college. But then it was like, this is like things that you were doing as a college student. Like, we didn't label ourselves as like CEOs or entrepreneurs. It was just like something that we were doing.
Right.
Because we thought there was a need for it. And I did that in an effort to bring together Black writers from LSU's campus and Southern University's campus, which was the HBCU in Baton Rouge. And I was at LSU, the PWI, and there was a lot of conflict between Black students on those campuses because, you know, just historically, oh, you think you're better than us, or, you know, you guys think you're better than us. And it was always tension. And I'm like, we're all Black.
Right. We all have
come together. Yes, we're all in this struggle together. I don't care where you decide to go to college. And so I began to facilitate that space online. And, you know, this was before people didn't even have faces on Facebook, right? So it was like Facebook was still thefacebook.com. And you didn't even utilize it as like a big medium. And so it was something that I guess you could consider my first venture of sorts. My history professor at the time gave me like $500. So I guess he's my first investor.
Yeah, the first investor.
Yeah, my first investor, $500. And he was like, yeah, you have to go do this and this. You're going to have to pay your writers because nobody's going to be writing for you for free for that long. And so, you know, I hosted a meetup with some of my friends and other people who helped me pull it together. You know, I paid $25 for my first logo, a couple $100 to my friends who did web design, and we put it together and launched it. And so I guess you can say that I've always been entrepreneurial. And I always felt like I would own something and utilize things that I was passionate about to build something.
That's so dope. Like, I didn't know that story, but that it's so true that it's like sometimes those qualities of being a leader are already kind of instilled in you. I don't know that I was, in college, I definitely didn't have my mindset on being an entrepreneur, but it's really quite interesting to me. And I also find it interesting that your professor was like, I will be an investor, because I've talked to a lot of people who, millennials rather, now who are business owners who have professors or teachers or people when they were younger who kind of planted a seed, and believed in their dreams. Even early on, just believed that they had the capabilities to do great things. So shout out to the professor. Like,
and he wasn't even looking at it as like, oh, I'm making an investment. He was just like, oh, you're gonna need help, and you know, so he was willing to like help me, without, you know, investors want a return. Like, it wasn't about that. The return was, you're gonna go out here and bring other Black students together to accomplish something that's, you know, worthy of support and that should be supported, you know? And so it was looking back at it, like you said, it's pretty dope.
I love that. And so when you graduate, what made you say, I want to start Solid Ground Innovations?
Yeah. So, now I'm in grad school, and I'm working at this organization called Louisiana CASA, and I was working on a lot of advocacy work, and CASA is court-appointed special advocates for children who have been in and out of foster care. And I came up with this campaign underneath this opportunity we called the Forgotten Children's Project. And I was seeking out individuals who had higher profiles to utilize them to be volunteers and like the faces of this volunteer campaign that we were launching to recruit more Black males, because a lot of the foster children that were our cases were Black boys, but the majority of the volunteers were white women. And so you can imagine that, you know, there was a need and a demand to have more Black male volunteers. And so I began to reach out to like the mothers of athletes that I had went to school with, so that they could come together and be like the face of a campaign. And from doing that, they started actually approaching me about doing, helping them create their foundations and their community outlets through whatever sports team they're on. And so this is like when LSU was at the height of its SEC dominance. So we were like number one in football. We were like top in it in basketball. And so we were producing just a lot of NBA, NFL players. And so one of the individuals had left for play for the NBA, the Chicago Bulls, Tyrus Thomas. Mother was like, "Oh, you guys should come on board, and you should come on board and help us create a foundation, his community outreach plan in Chicago, and then back in Baton Rouge where he grew up." And at first I was like, no, that's not what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm focused on this. And they were kind of really like just adamant about the opportunity and that, I was the right person to help them get started. And eventually I left CASA to do that and began consulting in the space. And then other people started referring me, other nonprofits started referring me. And so SGI first started off as a nonprofit consulting company. And it literally spun out of me just doing consultancy work and being referred, where I had enough traction where I was like, okay, maybe I should turn this into a business.
Right. This is the other thing that I'm thinking of as you're talking. It's like, I know a lot of millennials will tell me sometimes that they find it hard to figure out what they really want to do. It's like, I don't really know. I know that I'm good at this, or I might have this knowledge here, but I don't know what to do with it. And sometimes it just takes an opportunity. Like, you are already working somewhere else and other people were saying, "Hey, I noticed that you're great at this." And it kind of spirals into something. So it's like, once you start moving your feet in one direction or another, something can unfold that you wouldn't even, dream of, or you can't even like think of it. You're like, I wasn't thinking to do that at all.
Yeah, for sure. I think that most people, I do believe opportunity is a shortcoming, particularly for a lot of just young Black millennials. But I think the other piece is ensuring that you're prepared for the opportunity, right? Because a lot of people turn down opportunities because they're just not prepared. They're not responsive. They're afraid, So a lot of reasons why they don't move forward.
That's a big piece of it too, being afraid. And I think we'll talk about that later, because I think fear is something that holds a lot of people back that might have amazing ideas, but they second guess themselves or say like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm able to do that." So that is another piece of it. But to think that what I found extremely impressive was that at 22, you were able to grow your business to be a 7-figure company at 22 years old. At 22, what was I doing? I'm trying to think. What was I? I think I just graduated and moved to Atlanta. But yeah, I wish that I had the foresight to start anything and grow it that fast. So what were some steps that you took to actually get your company to grow legs and just skyrocket in the way that it did so early on?
Yeah, so my company didn't grow overnight. It took actually a few years. Although I started my company at 22, we didn't surpass 7 figures for at least like 3-4 years.
Okay. And that's still awesome.
Yeah, so I was probably like, but it was a lot I didn't know, right? And so I was learning a lot. And although I had clients underneath my belt, to get to 7 figures, you have to have more lucrative deals, right? And so like the more lucrative deals you have to retain the clients that you have to do go in like more partnership engagements, and you have to land contracts. And so I began to network more outside of the space that I was in. So I knew that I wanted to expand my reach to like the private sector, working with companies and corporations. And one of my first large contracts was with Aetna Better Health, which is obviously a Fortune 100 healthcare company. And that was like my first 7-figure contract. And I was like, oh, okay, like, where do I do that?
You're like, what?
Yeah. And I was like, they gave me, they could have given it to any marketing company, but they found like the value in not only my background, but in the work I had done in the community. And they wanted to be grounded in the community, and they wanted their marketing to have that community touch and to like really reach people. And so I was able to, position myself as that person really within South Louisiana. And so people would come to me not only for that, but because they felt like I was an executor, right? And so they felt like when they came through the door, that not only was I able to, build my own company, but they felt confident that I could do it for them. And honestly, that was like my priority. I think that sometimes people spend too much time trying to build themselves up. But if you work to do and accomplish things for other people by word of mouth and by referrals, you'll grow your business, right? I think sometimes we spend too much time trying to, get press around get press around your clients. Like, don't get press around yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, build your client's website, write a blog about your client. Like, we spend too much time on ourselves.
Right. But then, because then you get the referrals from that. Like, if you do a great job for.
Exactly.
Right. That makes complete sense. But, sometimes in the self-absorbed way, or the generation we are in now, or the times that we are in now, rather, it's just kind of like, I want to receive the praise, but it's like, it's really about helping other people kind of do the best work that they can do, and in turn it'll come back to you tenfold. So
exactly, I talk about that so often. I was like, put in the work, and I promise you, you're going to get so much more work, because your referrals and your recommendations, that's how you really grow a business and how you keep customers and clients for years.
Mm-hmm. And I was also thinking about how important it was maybe to have someone to help guide you. So I remember reading in your article, you were featured in Essence, and you mentioned that one of your very first mentors noted that I think you were at a conference, and you said that of all of like 500 women, you were one of the only ones who reached out to him, and he noted that. Do you think it's really important for anyone who's like starting out, even whether it's in tech or just starting a business altogether, to have a mentor? Because I know a lot of times we just kind of think like, oh, I'm going to do it all on my own, I'm going to figure it out. But how important do you think having a mentor is to the growth of an entrepreneur?
It's critical. I truly believe like no one succeeds alone. Like some of the things that have been published about me was like, oh, self-made. It's like, define what that means, right? Because like people have to open the door for me. People had to give me opportunities. People had to say yes. People had to sign up for contracts. People had to definitely vouch for me to be successful. It wasn't like, that those things are going to fall out the sky into my lap. And I believe I'm such a huge believer of mentors. I don't even call them mentors. I call them guides, mm-hmm. right? Mentors can be so heavy of an act for people, right? And so you're like, oh, particularly people who have a lot of mentors. Yeah. But if you ask someone to be like, can you be my guide? Like, mm-hmm. oh, yeah, like, yeah, I could do that.
Right.
And so when I would approach people, I would refrain from saying, oh, can you mentor me? People got enough mentors. Mm-hmm. They got enough mentees. They got enough of all that. What you need is someone to help guide you in your space, to help, whether that's making introductions, whether that's giving feedback on things. And so I think like that's the purpose and the reason of like reaching out to people who are in your space, who've been there, who've done that, who can give you guidance and advice in different areas. And I always tell people that I look for like those type of people across different areas of my life, not just like in business, but like personally, spiritually, all these other things that I feel like I have room for improvement in, or could be very, very more so connected. And those individuals who serve as like my guides or just my colleagues or people that have helped me along the way, I have sought them out cold, mm-hmm. for the most part, like cold. And I think oftentimes, and this is also because of social media, that you'll see someone who is on social media and they like have maybe like 1 million followers, and you want to reach out to them to be your mentor. No, you know how many people are behind the scenes who don't have any followers, who don't even have the social media, and no one even knocks on their door because they probably haven't even done their due diligence to know they exist. Yeah. Go find that person. Yeah. Don't find the person that receives 5,000 messages a day.
Exactly. And it's going to get lost in it. Well, because it's usually sometimes it's, millionaires who have a wealth of knowledge, who don't have a social presence at all. And they could very well help. And people think more, numbers. And you see like, oh, this person has like a presence. Obviously, they're the person that I want to go to. It's like, well, maybe you need to go to the one who doesn't have all of that. It could be someone with 500 followers and they have like more time to do that. So that makes sense.
It could be someone in your community. It could be someone. There's just so many people who have influence. Not talking about like social media influence. I'm talking about like influence in your communities, in your cities, in the corporations that are in your city, who can help make deals happen, who can recommend you, who can refer you, who can vouch for you. Like those are the people you need to go after. Not the person that is not even worried about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
I can't even connect. I don't even know. Like, I'm just too far away from what you're doing.
Right.
And I have 100 people asking me to do the same thing for them.
Yeah.
How?
Right.
How is that person going to do that?
How will I do this? I am only one person and I have only so many hours in a day. No, and then they probably don't even run their own account. So it's like they may, not even see the message if you send it. So yeah, don't overlook people locally. Look for those relationships. Anyone who's listening, take that tidbit of information. And then also in terms of teams, creating a team around you. For even me specifically, I'll talk about myself personally. I wear a lot of hats I have ideas to do different things. And a lot of times I'm like, okay, well, I can figure it out. It's like I have this mentality in my mind that's like, I can figure anything out. But I understand that, again, there's only so many hours in a day, right? And I don't know what I don't know. And I'm not strong in every skill. So I can't just grow my business on my own or different things that I'm doing on my own. So I have to tell myself, it's time for you to get a team. So how quickly did you realize, okay, I need people around me to help scale my companies and help me grow because I can't do it on my own?
Yeah. So my first company, we grew it literally like person by person. The company was bootstrapped. I never raised any money for my first company. And the first person I asked to come on my team was my line sister. So she was like a logistical dynamite, soldier. Like she would get anything done. And that was like what I knew her for. She was in grad school all the time. And she was like, sure, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came on board in something like a COO role. And we started building. Then we hired an assistant. And then I hired my first marketing person. Then I brought on a couple of interns. And so we brought on people based on need and based on demand versus hiring ahead of that demand.
Okay.
And so it's more like build for what you need. And I always tell people the number one thing that I was told by one of my mentors is that the number one reason that businesses in that space would fail is that because they built too fast.
Gotcha. And not just kind of using the people that you have available to kind of do what's necessary, but you bring on a lot of people too quickly and can't maintain it.
Yeah, you run out of money.
Right. Okay. Find where there's a need and you just cannot do that work, bring someone on, even as interns. I think that's also a good thing that you had interns. I have used interns as well because you can help a college student who might want to get in your respective career fields and need some guidance. That's a mentor. You're mentoring them in exchange for some help there. So I think that's really important. But I want to, move into talking about ExemptMeNow because I mentioned it at the outset, but I want to know more about it and just kind of how it came about and the services that you offer with ExemptMeNow, because I also think it's incredible that you are able to raise the capital that you have in a few years. So talk about ExemptMeNow, what you're doing, and how it came about.
Yeah, so ExemptMeNow, as I mentioned, was a spinoff of a service line of my first company. And so essentially we set out to TurboTax the process in which individuals would go through incorporation and exemption for a tax-exempt organization. And so say if you wanted to start a nonprofit, you would have to go to your Secretary of State's office, and then you would have to go to the IRS website and you had to fill out these forms and pull all these documents and get board members and get your EIN number, or you had to pay an attorney to do it or accountant to do it, or maybe someone else who was a nonprofit service provider. And so we took all those different elements because we were doing this underneath our nonprofit management arm of SGI. And so we're like, there has to be a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we essentially TurboTax the process, as we say, do it yourself, but not by yourself, and deliver it on demand. And so we took with IRSD and took 101 hours or more to do that entire process and reduced it down to 10 hours or less with our software. And so that was the first product that launched to the public in November 2015. And so that's more like a consumer-driven product. But our company has since really morphed into more of a SaaS business model. and we heavily have introduced our subscription solutions. And so our subscription is like, what's life like after that, right? And so now we have a base and premium subscription for existing nonprofit organizations, which essentially set out to productize our consulting services. And so we were consultants, obviously, for large private foundations and small nonprofits, and we were providing like all these services and back-end support that nonprofits needed to be successful. And so we essentially have put all those things, all the learning, all the experiences, all the documents, the webinars, the trainings that we did, and put this into a subscription platform that nonprofits have on demand. And the third tier of our subscription platform is Enterprise, which caters to those who deploy capital. So like corporations, private foundations, and cities, specifically in the government space.
That's genius, actually, especially the first piece that you talked about for like anyone who might want to start a nonprofit and they don't know what they need to do. And I get people ask all the time, they say, well, can you help me? Like, what are some things? And I'm like, that's not my specialty. So I'm not really sure all the things that you need to do, to start a nonprofit and all the paperwork that's involved. But I know it can be a very arduous process to get all of your documentation. So to condense it down to, you've done all of the work and you're like making it more efficient. I think that's so dope because there's so many people that have those ideas that they want to start and they just don't have the knowledge of what to do and like how to do it. So if you're listening and you want to start a nonprofit, ExemptMeNow has the knowledge and the insight that's going to help you streamline the process. So please go to ExemptMeNow so that you can learn more about what you need to do. The services are incredible. So were you able to use funding from your previous company to kind of be the funding for ExemptMeNow, or did you immediately say, we know we want to get investors to come on board?
No. So that was like the upside. I always tell people that my story is a little bit different from the funding side because I had started a company that was successful. It allowed me to invest my own money first into building out a concept, building out a lot of key things before I actually went out and raised money from other people. And so when I went out to raise capital, for the most part, people actually had something physical they could see. And so my first raise was like $400,000 in a pre-seed round. And then obviously this last raise, which was a seed round.
Okay. So it's like have something there to say like, listen, I've invested my own money into this company and now I have something to show for in terms of the success of my previous company. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm always telling people like, I know we have a whole bunch of ideas and things we want to do, but my friend who's in the wealth management space, we had dinner the other night. And he said something that his mentor told him, who is now like obviously a multimillionaire and basically do what he wants to do. He said, how you get rich is focusing on one thing. How you stay rich is diversifying. And I think like that's so true. Sometimes we can spread ourselves so thin. It's like focus on the thing that's going to make you the most money the fastest, which is going to allow you to have the resources to do everything else you want to do.
That is a tweetable, as Oprah will say. Focus on the thing that's going to make you the most money the fastest. I think we think sometimes like, oh, I'm passionate about this or I want to do this. But it's like, okay, what's going to bring you that revenue so that you can do those other things?
Yeah. And if you're not driven by that, then, then that's okay as well. Right. So if you're not driven by money, but, I'm reading a book now that says the purpose is profit. Mm-hmm. And, you start a business. At the end of the day, you start a business to make money. And however you want to argue, you want to argue that the goal is that you start a business to make money.
Exactly.
And I think that sometimes we get lost in that because we so much want to help people. And that's why I tell people, you're trying to get off the ground, but people should be paying you for your services, And I like to always feel like, oh, we have to offer people stuff for free. No, you never have to offer people anything for free.
Yeah. And, I think another big thing is for women, especially, I will say that sometimes we don't ask for what we're worth. Like we have all these, we've gained knowledge. We'll go out and do the work and learn these skills that, will help other people. But then we're afraid to ask. And that's something that I think will keep businesses from growing at the rate that they could. It's just like, don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth. Like you know, people need your services and you have the skills. So you have a right, because our male counterparts, they don't have any qualms about asking for what they're worth.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to walk away when somebody's trying to lowball you.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. Yeah, because we think that might be the only opportunity. I need to take this one. It's like, no, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You can.
There'll be other opportunities.
Exactly. Well, I think for also just for someone who's looking at your journey and how successful you have been in all of your companies, they think, well, that's incredible. But they might not understand that there were challenges along the way. So what's at least one hard lesson that you had to learn on your journey that has helped you as you've moved forward in your, companies and businesses and things of that nature?
So I'm still challenged by a lot of things, right? And so it's like an ongoing, it's ongoing. I think it'll always be ongoing. Maybe I think, even Oprah probably faces challenges. Hers just look a lot different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's not, she's not worried at night, I'm sure, if anything goes too wrong. But one of the challenges that I, even like raising capital, was that I've always been big about networking. But when I went out to raise capital, I didn't know anybody. And it took me a lot longer to raise a seed round because I didn't know anyone and no one knew me. And if I knew what I knew now, I would have went out and built those relationships a year before I went and raised money. And I feel like I wouldn't have faced as many barriers and would have been sidetracked as much had I done that. Because when you're raising capital, it's hard to stay focused on the other things that you need to be doing in your business, like generating revenue and building your team out and doing all these other great things, because you're so focused on raising capital because you need that to get to the next level. Mm-hmm. And so that was something, I'm just like a big believer in networking. And even being that, I still wasn't networked enough, right? And so I think that people have to think about what they want to do and like, okay, what resources am I going to need to be able to accomplish this? And really strategize about how you can access those resources and how long that's going to take before you can bring something to fruition in a meaningful way.
Networking early and often and not being afraid to also. You just have to put yourself out there, I would think. Going to different events. I remember one of the first, you invited me to a Black Chamber event. That was like my first time going to an event. You're like, oh yeah, come over here. And I met, who did I meet? At Cleveland Spears at the event. Yeah. He's a friend now of mine as well. And it's just like, it's good to have other women who support other women and say like, listen, you're only going to get your word out unless you are, networking and getting to know people. So thank you for bringing me along to that event. Because I was like, I don't know anybody. So I'm just kind of like looking around, trying to figure out things. But that was really helpful for me. What are some, I don't want you to plug anyone that we put a stamp on anything in particular if you don't want to, but like, what are some organizations that you would say, hey, this is somewhere you could start, maybe even locally, to meet other like-minded individuals? Yeah,
I mean, like the chambers, like your Black Chamber, or if you don't have that local chamber, maybe when I was coming up, there's like Urban League Young Professional Group. Try to connect with those type of organizations where you can actually meet people who are your peers, but then also you have to think about how can you network up. And so a lot of times millennials, we don't network up. And that's why you get to level like, dang, like nobody can help me get to the next level. And maybe I'm a little bit further ahead of my peers. We can network with each other, but I'm not able to get to the next level. And it's because you're networking across, which nothing's wrong with that. And you should do, because you have to have people in your peer group that you come up with. But you also have to figure out how to network up in your circles. And that can be, again, chambers or just reaching out to people individually. It doesn't have to necessarily be at an event, right? You can network with people by reaching out to schedule a coffee or to stop by their office to visit with them, and things of that nature.
Okay. Don't be afraid to network up. Okay. And I know people that interview you all the time want to ask you all about your companies and how you got to where you are. But I like to know things that like make individuals relatable and like, we all kind of, as young people, we do similar things in terms of like relaxing. So I was going to ask, while you're not busy grinding and putting your feet to the pavement, what are some things that you do to relax and just kind of like be social and have a good time, let your hair down when you're not working?
So I love experiences. So, concerts. I'm definitely a festival girl, living in New Orleans.
Right. New Orleans that's the thing.
Yes. I was, throw in some shorts and a shirt, and you would see me with my sunglasses trying every food.
Right.
every type of food at any given festival. I don't care if it's a mac and cheese festival. Obviously, Cleveland has the fried chicken festival, jazz festival. I'm all about the entertainment, the music, the food, connecting with my friends there, and just, enjoying myself.
Having a good time. Yeah, that's being, someone who lives in New Orleans. We are about, if it's food and good drinks and fun and friends, that's all we need. We really don't, it's all about the social life here. So that's one thing I love about people. Like, are you going to move somewhere else? I'm like, I don't know. But right now I'm enjoying the space where we get to connect with our friends and do things like that, eat and have a good time and enjoy music. And that's another thing. It's like, I'm like a big music person. I'm like, R&B is my jam. Like, I just like love that. Even working. So what's like on your playlist now? Whether you work to it or not, I work to music sometimes, but whether you work to music or not, like what's something that you listen to? Like who are the artists that you're listening to?
I'm so old school. Like somebody's like, you have grandma. You have Momo ears.
Hilarious.
Because all the stuff that I listen to is so old. Like I'm looking at my playlist right now, and it has like Craig David on it. It has Nina Simone. I'm so old school. Tony Braxton, it was one of my recent listens. Yeah, I'm old school.
That's me. And I'm the same way. I love, I was just listening to Eartha Kitt for whatever. It was just random, stuff like that. I love Nina Simone also. But who do it's just, first of all, Anita Baker is like it for me. Like, I absolutely love her. But that's good because millennials are kind of like, they're like, girl, step into the new times and listen to, and I'm like, no, I really appreciate Anita Baker and all of the, oldies but goodies. So I'm glad to know that I'm not by myself.
I try to keep up though. Like my friend has an Apple Music playlist that he updates frequently, like new music.
Right.
And so I know if I'm like, all right, what's actually new? I'll kind of go check there. But otherwise, I am not the person that you come to if you want to know what music everybody's just really cute today.
Right. You're like, no, you might want to ask somebody else because I'm not it. I'm with you on that. But I do like the artist. Like her is my favorite artist right now. The new, because she's so neo soul, so I love her, and like Ella May and stuff like that. So I was just I was wondering, like, what's on your playlist for whatever reason that kind of helps me focus listening to music. So what are some things that you do to help you focus when you just kind of have like a lot that you need to kind of drill down on? Like, do you have to like just get completely away from everyone in a quiet space, or do you work better like in a kind of team atmosphere?
Yeah, I'm definitely like, let me zone out by myself.
Gotcha.
And just like knock things out. I think that some people could work with a lot of people in their, around them talking, or like, I'm one of the people like, please don't interrupt me while I'm working. Like, please do not disturb signs.
Right.
I actually had one for my door at one time. It's like, everybody's knocking on my door so much. I'm like, guys, I had like sticky note, please do not disturb, when I was trying to just get some solid work knocked out. And I think that that kind of one of my mentors had told me about the concept of time blocking, which Bill Gates does as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would definitely like block out a couple of hours in my day where I just didn't want to like be disrupted because I'm trying to like do sprints through some things that I need to get done. Because otherwise stuff will just linger and carry on to the next day and the next day, and then more stuff piles up. And so I'm just a big believer of like just having a couple of hours, like sprint through things without any disruption.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And I mean, there are a lot of apps that help with that now. It's like that can kind of help you prioritize what you need to do, and you can block out your time. So if anyone's listening, because, you know, it can be hard if you have a lot going on. You're just like, I need to really focus. Time blocking helps a ton. This has been, well, the very last question that I wanted to ask is related to just anyone who's on a dream chasing journey, because I know you may get asked a lot about, you know, the tech industry, but Millennial Dreamers is all about anyone who has a dream, regardless of the industry that you're in, and you just really want to get started. Like, what's some general advice that you can give someone who's on that journey, who's wanting to step out and do something that they're really passionate about, that they believe in? What can you tell them to give them like a little boost of inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to know that, I know it seems like because you're living it, you're living your own journey, that you're like, man, like, why won't things just go like the way I need them to go? That it's happening to everyone, even at like their highest point where you may see them on like social media or whatever else. You don't see like the behind the scenes, day-to-day grind and hustle and getting knocked down. And so I think that you just have to be resilient, and you have to have the desire within yourself to get back up, even when you keep getting knocked down, with the belief that your breakthrough is like right around the corner, right? And so I think like that's something that we just have to like find within ourselves. And then also to like back that up with research and doing your own due diligence around what you're trying to do. I think that sometimes we have an idea and we're like, oh, we're going to move on this tomorrow. And then we end up not succeeding because we didn't do our research and we didn't figure out, like I said before, the resources and the tools that we needed to really be successful before we like launched. And although you don't want to get tied up into that, you want to like put something out into the universe. Just make sure that you're grounded enough to be confident in what you're trying to deliver to the market or to the public.
Such great advice for anyone listening. I just appreciate you so much for taking time. I know you're incredibly busy. So just to, you know, have you on for a little while to share your wisdom with the listeners really means a lot. And where can our listeners find you on all things social?
Sevetri Wilson, my first and last name. On any page, you can find me by my first and last name.
Sevetri Wilson on all things social. You want to follow her because clearly she's doing big things, making major moves, and we all just need to be tuned in, if only to just be inspired. Because I think even for myself, watching other women, specifically Black women, excel and go after their dreams and do amazing things is always kind of motivation for me to say, keep pushing, girl. You know, like you said, your breakthrough is around the corner if you just keep moving forward. So I appreciate you for that. And thank you so much for being on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Millennial Dreamers, we are signing out. Peace. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any ideas you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, send me an email to millennialdreamerspodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's millennialdreamerspodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Oh, and hit the subscribe button. Talk soon. Peace.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.